Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the classes that are going to be good options for you to choose in your first semester. Again, this is based primarily on students who are interested in transferring to the UC system. And laying out full educational plans is fairly difficult just because the courses that you're required to take vary depending on each campus and each university. But in general, these that I'm going to recommend here are geared primarily for UC transfer, Berkeley, LA, San Diego, Davis, those kind of universities primarily. Take a look at some of the additional videos I have on my page. There'll be additional information on choosing your math courses, selecting the most appropriate English class, and the general education. And again, this is based primarily on a 2-year plan. It might also be a 1.5-year plan, depending on sort of your unique circumstances. And again, I only recommend those first semester classes because, like I said, the requirements really vary. For example, if you're interested in doing a computer science major and you're applying only to Berkeley, you don't ever have to take a physics class. But Berkeley is very competitive. Transfer students transfer at about 6 or 7%. So students will apply to a lot of different universities. So if you add, for example, UCLA on top of that, then you're going to be required to take at least 3 semesters of physics. If you add UC Davis, they'll have some additional requirements. If you add San Jose State, they'll have some additional requirements. So the goal with this is really just to help you pick first semester courses that are going to help you no matter which university you're sort of planning to go to. So I'm going to start off with architecture, and these will be fairly in alphabetical order. And I start off with your first fall, your first spring, you have your summer, and then you have your second year, your second fall, and your second spring. Ideally, and I've covered this in some of the other videos, ideally most of your major preparation is done by the end of your final fall. It's not a requirement, but it does make your application for transfer stronger. Your applications will happen here around October, November in your second year. And then your final spring, hopefully you're taking leftover general education, elective units, maybe some more major preparation if possible. And then by the end of your final spring, you hopefully have at least 60 units. You might have 70 or 80 units depending on your major. So for architecture, and this is again primarily leaning towards schools like UC Berkeley, I always recommend if possible taking English in your first semester. And again, take a look at the videos on English, because it's not required to take in your first semester, but it's always a good option and always a good strategy to start with that. With architecture, I would recommend, if possible, the calculus class, and take a look at the math video on how to clear those requirements. And then I'd recommend the first 2 architecture courses in the series. We have our Architecture 120 or Architecture 130. Again, these are ideal. If you miss one, it's fine. You can still transfer in 2 years. If you miss 2, it's fine. You can still transfer in 2 years. But as I've noted here, we want to get as much of that major prep done as possible. So these 4 classes are going to be sort of a really good plan, a really good option to start with. Moving on to business, and you'll see everything's sort of set up the same. Same information under fall, same information under spring. Hopefully your English is done by the end of that semester. Again, it's not required that it's done there. But usually I would recommend that you have it done certainly by the end of your final fall. So with business is pretty open. You don't have to take a lot of requirements in the first semester. These are just some of the recommendations. It would be the basic English, starting with calculus, maybe a sports class, and I almost always recommend those. Things like tennis, badminton, swimming, weightlifting, yoga, bowling. It's a great way to get out, meet other students, practice English, and sort of have some fun outside of the academic classrooms. And then I'd recommend that Business 109, that's our introduction to business. That'll sort of give you an overview of everything that you're going to be sort of learning within the major. And I'll sort of cover this at the end of this presentation as well, but if you don't take those 4 classes, you're fine. If you don't take Intro to Business, we'll move that over to the spring. You might take some more general education in that first semester. So with a major like business, don't worry too much if you don't get everything perfect in that first semester. Some majors, more like computer science, or engineering, those ones are going to be really important to get those first semester classes that I'm going to recommend if the goal is to transfer in 2 years. But majors like business, it's pretty open, it's pretty flexible. As long as that major prep is done by the end of your final fall, you're going to be as competitive, hopefully, as the rest of the candidates. Chemistry or chemical engineering, this one is an important note that if you took chemistry in high school, sign up for the chemistry assessment. If you did not take chemistry in high school, then you will need to take an introduction to chemistry. That's our Chem 108. But if you did it already in high school, we have a quick assessment that you can take and hopefully skip that material since you've already learned it and you've already mastered it. That will save you hopefully time. It'll save you money as well. And then for these majors, chem or chemical engineering, these 3 are going to be the most important to take. Calculus, because you're going to have a fairly robust list of math courses to take. And then also the Chem 120, just because for most of the universities, you're going to have a second chemistry as well as a full year of organic chemistry. So it's really important, if possible, to take that in that first fall. Computer science or data science. Same thing, depending on the university, you might have to take physics, and just like I mentioned for chemistry, if you took physics in high school, you do not have to take an assessment, but if you pass it with a C or better, they're going to let you skip this Physics 129. You want to get those transcripts sent into our admissions office soon, so that you do not have to take this class in your first semester. But good courses to take if possible, English, our calculus. ComSci 110 is our intro to programming class. It's the prerequisite for many of the programming classes that are going to follow, things like C++, data structures, and so on. Economics is a really easy major to plan for. There's only 4 major requirements, a year of calculus and a year of economics. So if you took all general education in your first semester, you would be fine because you have a lot of time to take care of those 4 requirements before the end of your final fall. But in general, just like a lot of the other majors, I recommend English, first semester of calculus, maybe one of the sports classes, and a general education class. If you're unsure what this stands for or what courses are included in that, I have another video on IGETC on this page as well. Moving on to math, actuarial mathematics, statistics majors. Very similar first semester. You're going to start with your English, you're going to start with math, maybe some general education, maybe a sports class, something like that. You really can't go wrong, but as long as you're starting off with your math and English, you're going to be going in the right direction. Things like media studies or communications also don't require a lot of major preparation, very different from majors like computer science or engineering that might require more than 50 units of major prep. Media studies, communications might only require 9, 12, 15 units depending on the university you're applying for. So same thing, if you don't get these classes in your first semester, you have a lot of time to take care of them while you're at DVC to make sure that you also have a very strong application in your second year. So don't worry if you don't have all of these. Different from the other majors that we've looked at so far, this major is not going to require calculus. The only math course you're going to be needing for this major for most universities is going to be the statistics course, which is our Math 142. So you'll see we have about 13 units here in the first semester, which is great. International students must have at least 12 per semester to remain in status. And remember, the goal is to have at least 60 by the end of your final spring. Majors like psychology or even sociology, fairly similar to media studies or communications, English, statistics, maybe a sports class, maybe an introduction to psychology class. If you're a sociology major, I would say take everything that's basically here the same. Maybe just switch our Psychology 101 with our Sociology 120, which is our Intro to Sociology class. But same thing, not a lot of major prep depending on the universities you're going for. If you don't take these, you'll have a lot of time to catch up before the end of your final fall. If you're unsure of your major, and this is very common, it's really difficult to be 100% certain of your major at 18 years old. We grow a lot. We keep learning a lot about our values and what's important to us, our personality. Some of you may be looking to work in the United States. Some of you may be planning to go back to your countries and work. And, it really just depends on sort of how you're processing what's important to you. And one of the things I recommend with this in that first semester, you're going to need English no matter what major you choose. I would recommend some general education, maybe take a sports class. And then I would encourage you to take either our student success class or our career and life planning course. These are great classes to take, even if you're pretty sure of your major, as these courses will help you lay a good foundation as a student and think about ways to connect to your career goals. So to wrap up, it's okay if you don't choose exactly the combination that I've listed here in your first semester. Some of the majors, like I mentioned, engineering or computer science, we do want to help you get into some of those classes, especially if the goal is to transfer in 2 years. If you're a business major, econ, communication, psychology, you have a lot of time. And if you don't pick those classes up in your first semester, there's really nothing to worry about. And we'll be able to sort of add those later on as you go. Like I said, in general, always a good idea to start with your English and math first. That'll often be 10 units right from the start. I would always recommend the sports classes. Like I said, badminton, yoga, tennis, volleyball, soccer, we have a great list. If you're interested in transferring to the UC, you can complete up to 4 of those classes. They'll accept up to 4 units of different sports or activity classes that you take at DVC. So it's really a good option to take every semester. Consider those counseling and career classes from the last slide of those that might be unsure of your major. Again, that's our student success course, our career and life planning class. You'll be looking at all these different pieces, looking at majors, goals, careers, building resumes. Definitely a good course to consider, either one. And then in general, set up counseling appointments every semester. The counselors at DVC are very dedicated and committed to helping you reach your goals as seamlessly as possible. We want to help you save time and money whenever possible. So certainly set up those appointments with us regularly, and good luck.